Do you ever feel like you don't belong wherever you are, or like you're just faking whatever you're doing or whatever your tastes are? And if people really got to know you and they really knew the real you, then they would think that you were a fraud and you'd be laughed out of wherever you are? Yeah, me too. I am your host, Naomi, and this is Mosaic in Progress. And today we are talking about imposter syndrome and how it relates to trauma. So, if you grew up in an abusive household, you likely were not allowed to be your true self. You weren't allowed to pursue your particular interests or express yourself in whatever style that you liked, or any of the things that people normally develop in adolescence and going into adulthood. And you may have had somewhat of an identity crisis when you got out of that abusive environment. You may have not really known who you were or what you liked or what you wanted your life to be like, because it had been dictated for you through your entire life. And finally figuring out what you really like and allowing yourself to embrace those things can sometimes feel like you're faking something when you're developing it so much later than your peers developed it. I know for me, I was very much a goth punk in my early teens, and that was literally beaten out of me with a tuba six shortly before my 15th birthday. And so all of the things that I wanted to wear and all of the things that I really liked and the music that I liked and the way that I thought and the way that I wanted to live just got shoved down into a tiny little box that somehow lived inside of me until I could get out. And when I finally started allowing myself to wear the things and express myself in the way that had always felt right to me, it felt like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't, because it didn't really happen until I was around people who were dressing in the way that I had always wanted to and never let myself. And I was like, yeah, those are the things that I always wanted to do. That's the way I always wanted to dress. That's the style I always wanted to emulate. And so doing it at that point almost felt like I was copying someone. And I felt, feel, sometimes still, this constant need to justify myself and explain myself. And I think a lot of that came from, in my early teens, I had a bully who was also my crush. And he would always call me a wannabe. And he never really clarified that, but he always called me a wannabe, that I was a wannabe this, a wannabe that. And I felt like I had to prove that I was who I said that I was, because he acted like I was just trying to copy other people. And I wasn't. I mean, maybe my idols, I was maybe trying to copy Pink and Shirley Manson and Joan Jett, but I wasn't trying to copy the people around me. I just really liked that aesthetic, and it became like this point of shame for me, where I felt like I had to prove that I was who I was, and followed me well into adulthood. My first therapist, one of the first things that we worked on was she called me out and said that I did not have a wardrobe, that I did not have a sense of style. I had costumes. And I put on costumes to try to fit in wherever I thought I needed to. And she was absolutely right, because I'd spent my entire life trying to be whatever I needed to be to survive in whatever situation I was in. And because of that, my sense of style was very much what was safe for me. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I really found aesthetically pleasing. It wasn't how felt authentic to me. It was just what got me accepted, what kept me safe. And she said that I needed to work out what I wanted my style to be and figure out what I really liked. And that proved to be an extremely difficult exercise. And when I finally figured it out, I realized that I was a lot weirder than I had let myself believe, and a lot more different from the people around me than I'd let myself believe. And it was not as isolating as I thought that that would be. It was very empowering, and one of the best things that she did for me. I still struggle with that. Not so much in my career. I worked my ass off to get where I am in my career. And I know that that is a place where a lot of people feel their imposter syndrome, that they feel they're not good enough, that they are in a position that they don't deserve to be in. It's never a problem that I've had in my career, because I've always been fairly confident of my intelligence and skills. But it is a huge problem in my personal life and with my hobbies and things like that. I still feel the need to justify and explain my love of smoking pipes. I always wanted to smoke a pipe. When I was a kid and into my teens and adulthood, I always just thought it was the coolest thing. I had this vision of myself in a library with lots of, stained wood and leather furniture, and one of those globes that opens up and holds a crystal decanter, and just surrounded by books and smoking a pipe. That was just kind of my ideal life and aesthetic. And as I delved deeper into practicing witchcraft, I started learning about the use of tobacco in ritual and ceremony. And my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, I knew that he had smoked pipes in the past, and I asked him if he would teach me to smoke a pipe. And he did, and several months later, my friend who had smoked pipes since the Vietnam War saw my post on Facebook with the picture of us smoking pipes, and he bought me my first one. And I was kind of sold from that point on. It was a very slippery slope into pipe collecting, and I still feel like I have to justify that my husband didn't convince me to start smoking pipes, that he didn't talk me into it, he didn't have to twist my arm to get me into it. It wasn't something that I did because of him, which is very silly, but it is a problem that a lot of trauma survivors have, because you don't have a solid sense of identity when you grow up in an abusive home, particularly if you have a narcissistic parent or two narcissistic parents. If your entire identity is who your parents perceive or want you to be, You don't develop your own sense of self. And that carries over into so much of your life. Because if you don't know who you are, then it's really hard to go anywhere from there. If you have no sense of self, of who you are, of where you are, how do you do any kind of self-improvement? How do you do any kind of growth or healing if you don't even know yourself? And I think that is kind of the core of the situation. The problem is that you never got the opportunity to know yourself, to figure out who you are, because you were always told who you are or who you should be, or never allowed to be who you were. I couldn't even count the number of times I heard my mother say that you don't like that, that's not who you are, you don't want to be like that. In relation to something that I very much did want and wanted to be like. She cautioned me ceaselessly about how cheap I would look with tattoos and how I would look like a prostitute and how that's how men would think of me, that I was easy and cheap and didn't respect myself. And she said the same thing about piercings, and I was never a big piercing person. I just wanted my ears pierced. But any kind of piercings she viewed as pagan and heathen and evil and sinful. And I was forbidden from wearing certain colors of nail polish. And I look back on that and I just think how absolutely ridiculous that is, to tell a child that a color on their nails makes them look like a prostitute, or makes them look cheap, or makes them look like a bad girl. And it's ironic how often the evangelical church talks about the sexualization of children, being exposed to sexual matters too soon. I was probably 5 or 6 years old when I remember being told and hearing my older sister told that we looked like whores because we were wearing shorts for pajamas in the house where it was just our family. And if that isn't sexualizing children, I honestly don't know what is. Telling an 11-year-old that wearing red nail polish makes her look like a whore is sexualizing children. It's a color. There is nothing good or bad about a color. It is morally neutral. Nail polish is just a color on your nails. And to tell a child that they look like a prostitute for a color that they like, that they choose to put on their nails, is sexualizing a child. It is evil. My favorite color to paint my nails when I was 13 was this very dark blue, almost black, but it had a little bit of a shimmer to it, so it kind of looked like the night sky. And my parents made me throw it away because they said that it made me look like a bad girl. And I can't help but look back on that and consider the irony of assigning moral weight to a color and sexualizing, demonizing a child for their taste in clothing and adornments. And it's funny that I was the one that was called bad. I deal with imposter syndrome about who I am and the things that I love, the things that I believe, the things that are important to me, my sense of identity. I feel like I don't have roots in who I am a lot. A lot of people deal with that sense of imposter syndrome with their abilities and their skills, and growing up with someone who tells you that you're incapable will make you feel like you are incapable well into adulthood. And it's not something you just get over. It's not something you can just go, oh, well, they were awful and they were mean and that's not true and I'm fine now. Because it gets ingrained into your developing brain. And that is kind of the whole crux of childhood abuse. No matter what the specific abuse is, it gets ingrained into a developing brain, which means it becomes a part of who you are. Your brain develops around the abuse. Your literal brain structure develops to adapt to it. And that's not something you can just, okay, well, I'm fine now, I'm out of that house. It is something that requires conscious effort and conscious healing and intentional change in order to become who you really are, who you were meant to be, to become something more than just an abused child. And that carries with it a very heavy emotional weight, because having to essentially reparent yourself as an adult comes with a lot of anguish and resentment, because no one should have to do that. And having to do that brings up a lot of feelings of anger and hurt. And if you're someone who is going through that, just know I am sending you all the love. And I hope that you don't give up on doing that, because you're absolutely worth it. You deserved so much more than what you were given. You deserved love and safety. You deserve support and encouragement. And one survivor to another, I'm so sorry that you didn't get that. And it's not your fault that you didn't get that. But everything that they told you that you are or are not, it's not true. You can be whatever you want to be. You get to decide who you are. If you love pink or sparkles or black or denim or camouflage or plaid or polka dots or cottagecore or kitschy or retro 50s rockabilly, whatever it is, that's for you to love. And good for you. Good for you for loving it and for letting yourself love it. Because you deserve to surround your body with the things that make your heart happy. whatever those colors or patterns or vibes are. You absolutely deserve that. And there's nothing wrong with it, no matter what anyone told you. If they told you you look stupid in hats and you love hats, buy the damn hat and wear it. You are worthy of loving yourself and allowing yourself to be who you are. Allowing yourself to embody what feels right to you in every sense of that word. To love who you want to love. To show up in life how you want to show up and be perceived. If they told you you were weak, don't listen to them. My entire life, I heard that I was weak and sickly and needed someone to take care of me. And as soon as I broke away from them and started interacting with other people, the only thing I ever hear from people who get to know me is how strong I am. Don't you listen to the voices of your abusers. They lied to you because it was the only way to keep you under their thumb. You are beautiful, you are strong, you are capable. And whatever things make you you, whatever tastes, whatever passions, whatever goals, you go after them. You go after them, and you go after them with all of your heart, because you deserve it. You deserve to live the life that you want. You deserve to live the life that you envision. Everyone is on this earth for a purpose. I believe in homeostasis. And that every person, every being, every entity, every energy on this planet is here for balance. And whatever it is that drives you, whatever it is that makes you you, you are here because that's what this planet needs. So why diminish it? Shine exactly as you are. Let yourself be exactly who you are. Do not listen to the voices in your head that are echoes from your past. They can't hurt you anymore unless you let them. I still have trouble singing in front of people, and not just an audience in front of people, like on a stage, just letting people hear me sing, because my sister mercilessly mocked me for my voice for most of our childhood. And she only stopped when it was something that served her, when she needed someone to turn the pages in the piano book for her. And she would convince me to do it by asking me to sing. I still hear her voice in my head every time I try to sing. But I started doing it anyway. And my voice shakes a lot. And sometimes I cry. Sometimes my hands shake. But I do it anyway. Because doing things scared is how you get to doing them bravely, not scared, confidently. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It's pushing on in spite of the fear. Because if you weren't afraid, it wouldn't require anything of you. Where's the bravery in that? If you're not afraid, you can't be brave. So be brave, be bold, show up as yourself, even if you think that you're not really authentic, that you're an imposter. If you think that there's going to be someone jump out of the woodwork and say, "Ha ha! I've uncovered your secret." Wait for that person to jump out of the woodwork so you can laugh in their face. Because you are exactly who you decide to be. No matter what anyone else's opinion of that is. No matter how anyone feels about that. No matter if anyone thinks that you should be that or not. You are exactly who you decide to be. So let yourself show up in life as that person. Paint the picture, sing the song, write the poem, or the novel, or the short story. Play the instrument, wear the hat, paint your nails, get that piercing or tattoo, buy the weird shoes. Do whatever makes you happy, because that is the point. You are given your passions for a reason, because the world needs them. And there are enough people who blend into the homogeny of the status quo. The world doesn't need more of those. I heard more times than I can count that the things that happened to me for a reason. And this was mostly by people in the church telling me that God was going to use me and the things that happened to me. Which is a really fucked up thing to say to someone who has just been raped or had a miscarriage or is talking about how their dad beat them with a 2x6. But that's the church for you. I don't believe that. I don't believe that the things that happen to us for a reason, that there's some grander purpose to every single fucked up thing that happens to us. But I do believe that we can use it. And I believe that about every good and bad thing that happens in your life. You decide the purpose of it. You can give meaning to it. And you don't have to. I don't mean that to put pressure on anyone. But you certainly have it within your capabilities, within your power, within your autonomy, to take whatever happened to you and alchemize it. Take that lead, turn it into gold. Take that trauma, that pain, and turn it into power. Turn it into something that is good for you. and put that goodness out into the world. If you were given judgment, extend compassion. If you were given pain, extend comfort, love. Do not let the things that happen to you define you. Instead, define yourself. And in doing so, reject whatever narratives still remain inside your head telling you that you're an imposter. Because you are exactly who you decide to be. You have that power. Don't ever relinquish it to anyone else. Decide for yourself. And I hope that you will join me next week on the podcast as we both continue to work on our mosaic in progress. This episode was a lot shorter than I intended for it to be, and shorter than most of my episodes, but I hope that it was beneficial to you. I hope that you gained something from it. Please remember to follow us, rate, review, wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media, on Instagram and Facebook. And join us next week wherever you listen to podcasts. I will see you all then.